Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Glory Glory My Night podcast. I'm your host, as always, Kyle Quinn, and joining me today is Nigel to discuss the narrow and late victory over Fulham at Craven Cottage. How's it going, Nigel?
I'm doing well, thanks, Kyle.
Not too bad myself, and we're going to discuss a rare victory for United, but we can't really pretend to be overly happy about it, given how bad things have been recently and how poor the performance was. And given that United are eighth in the table and have won 6 wins and 5 losses in the Premier League and struggling to get out of the Champions League group, knocked out of the League Cup. So yes, I can understand the fans in the away end yesterday were elated with a late winner, but sitting at home watching the game, it was difficult to be enthusiastic about the whole thing. The performance was lackluster. United did have the ball in the back of the net early on, and I'm still confused as to why it was disallowed. Um, uh, there's been several bizarre decisions this weekend. Lewis Dunk's goal been disallowed for Everton. Anthony Gordon's goal that was given for Newcastle, despite the ball appearing to be out of play against Arsenal, and not been. I think the PGMOL are in as much disarray as Manchester United are at the moment. That's how bad they are. So Nigel, we'll discuss the game, but not that there's much to talk about really, and then we'll discuss United in general, and maybe take a wee look ahead to the crucial Champions League fixture on Wednesday night. So first of all, Nigel, what did you make of the game itself yesterday?
I thought it was mediocre from start to finish. Uh, the away fans had a sign up behind the goal, Kyle, saying, "Play as if you mean it." That's an indictment of the current squad and the current management. There's absolutely no fight there. There's no interest. They're strolling through games. There's 16 matches in total, 11 league games, and then five in the two cups. Apart from the first half at Spurs, 45 minutes and 16 games has been good enough for me. Absolutely devastated watching this team for 50 years. And it's the chap next door to me was over at Old Trafford for the Manchester Derby. He said they wanted to leave after the first half. It was just so appalling. Players out there, obviously, the manager has lost the dressing room. Maybe it's the people that signed for Ten Hag are staying with him, and the others who may be in alliance with Jadon Sancho, who we don't want to talk about. Sooner he leaves the club, the better. So it's just very, very hard for any of us to watch the team. It's not a team at all. It's just 11 individuals out on that pitch, and it's hard, very hard to watch.
Yeah, they're so disjointed, and there's no patterns of play. Even the goal that United got at the end of the game, it was purely down to the desire of Palestri, and some very bad defending from Fulham who just couldn't clear their lines. And eventually, Bruno sold a dummy to one of the defenders and then curled the ball into the corner. Keeper got a hand to it but couldn't keep it out. But I mean, it wasn't great football or anything. It was just uh, pinball inside Fulham's penalty area because Palestri's persistence and they couldn't clear their lines. So uh, apart from that, it had 0-0 written all over it. Yes, I mentioned United had the ball in the back of the net earlier on, but in between the two times United had the ball in the back of the net, there wasn't really much happened in the game. Um, yeah, it's just so many players are just not doing it at the moment. I mean, yes, Bruno scored, but that's only the second time he scored from open play this season. Um, Now people said under Solskjaer that Bruno quite often didn't play well in a lot of games, but he would often produce the goods with goals and assists. Now, at the moment, he's not playing well at all. But the goals and assists that he produces in moments have very much dried up. So that's only twice in 11 games now where he's produced something out of nothing. Um, the the mid Anthony is just absolutely atrocious. Like I've said on X or formerly known as Twitter, he's probably pound for pound the worst signing that Manchester United have ever made. Well, if to me he's never going to be a success. and they're never going to get their money back on that one. Um, Bruno, despite the goal, is out of form. That goal doesn't sugarcoat that. Um, Rashford is desperately out of form as well. Even Garnacho got a chance yesterday, didn't take it. The manager's team selections are often called into question. I don't blame him for dropping Amrabat, um, but it was obvious that he needed to bring back Wan-Bissaka yesterday. He did, but then he moved Dallo to left back instead of playing Regulon, which would have made more sense to me. I always want left-footed players at left back. Dallo has been an absolute disaster recently. Yeah, and then he's his favourite centre back pairing at the moment is Evans and Maguire, and leaving Varane on the bench. Such a probably the best defender in the world at one point, who has got medals coming out of his ears, and he's been dropped for 35-year-old Johnny Evans, and doesn't look very happy about it. So, and Hoyland, whilst I like the player, his effort cannot be questioned. He was not a prolific goal scorer on arrival, and he struggled to score goals in the Premier League, albeit with the caveat that he's not provided with much service. I mean, how many chances does he get in one game? It's either zero or one. Um, but yeah, our biggest need in the summer was a goal scorer who's going to guarantee goals, an experienced striker. In fact, what we really should have done is sign both Hoyland for the future and a striker for here and now. And it's so hard to watch Harry Kane. I think he scored three hat tricks now in Germany. He has more goals than he's played games for Bayern Munich. Um, yeah, the manager's recruitment has to be called into question, and yeah, the performances now are just so rotten. I just don't see a way back for the manager. Yes, we've seen this with previous managers. Mourinho getting the win over Newcastle when they were 2-0 down, Ollie getting that 3-0 win over Tottenham, which was unexpected. Inevitable will happen. We might beat Luton, but sooner or later we're going to trip up a game again, because there is United have not played well all season, and yeah, it just seems to be once the rut sets in, then things begin to spiral, and then inevitably the manager will be sacked by Christmas. And I still feel that that's the way this is going.
It looks like it, but on the Hoyland point, Kyle, it was very obvious to me yesterday that the guy was trying. He was making runs off the ball, was being totally ignored. And you could see it in his face. What have I got to do to get a pass from anywhere on the pitch? Nobody looking over the top for him when he was on side and making sprints, and he just had to come back on side, and it went down various wings and then went back to the centre halves. There's just no width in the team. There's no balance. There's no pattern. It changed a wee bit, thankfully, when Palestri came on, because the right hand side, if Rashford's on the left, he's playing for himself. If Anthony's playing, he's playing for himself. There's no team pattern there, and that young fella has been sold a pup there by being put in there, wanting to prove himself and not get in any service. I don't blame the young fella at all. His confidence is bound to be affected by this sort of treatment week in and week out. Surely somebody has to get the ball into the middle and give him a chance to score. They didn't have any chances at all.
No, I can't think of even one chance that he had yesterday. So how could you blame him? He's very unhappy with the manager substituting him. You could see it on his face. And once again, Martial coming on as a substitute. Um, Martial's performance against Newcastle showed that he's simply not an option. He's not an alternative at all, and shouldn't be at the club anymore. And it baffles just about everyone that he's still there. So we're woefully short up front, with a very inexperienced young striker and a guy who's outstayed his welcome. As our only options at number 9. So it's not a surprise that we've struggled to score goals. I mean, I had a look yesterday at the goal difference between us and the teams around us. You know, if you look at Liverpool, Arsenal, City, Villa, Brighton, Newcastle, Tottenham, their goal differences are all like plus 15, plus 14, plus 13, plus 12. We're sitting on -4. We have the same goal difference as Everton, I think, and Wolves. That's how poor we are. We're winning games by the odd goal, and then we're getting thrashed in the games that we lose. Uh, that's not sustainable. I like I
Well,
said, I think
have we got 12 league goals in 11 league matches? So we're 24 goals behind Manchester City. We're -4 in there plus 20. I mean, that just is absolutely embarrassing, Kyle. Absolutely horrible.
yeah, it is really really poor. And we complained about that last season, that there was a lack of goals in this team, and it hasn't got any better whatsoever. And yeah, there's players who are just not putting in the effort anymore. It's like they've lost trust and belief in the manager. I definitely think that Rashford is one of them. Sadly, he's got his
Yeah.
5 year contract, and he's a shadow of the player that he was last season. Doesn't look remotely interested. Isn't isn't helping the team when United don't have the ball. What's your thoughts on Rashford this season, Nigel?
It's really, really poor, Kyle. There's no doubt about it. Whether he's more aligned to Jadon Sancho off the pitch than he is with his efforts on the pitch. 1 goal so far this season, 30 last season. Uh, Keeps running into cul-de-sacs, keeps shooting from strange positions, doesn't shoot with his left foot again. He was going so well last season by shooting with both feet. That seems to have gone. Uh, the fans can see the body language, and it's not good. Whether he wants to stay at the club, he's got a 5 year contract, or whether he doesn't. People made it clear who attended the England game about how much effort and running about he did in that game. He's done none of that for United this season. There's obviously a blockage between him and the manager, and I don't see a resolution to it. I really don't.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like Rashford is playing for the manager. Anthony is simply appalling. And the manager continues to select him. He's obviously his most expensive signing, and he wants to try and play him into form. But for me, it's just not going to happen. He was absolutely woeful yesterday again, and manager was once again forced to substitute him, and brought on Plessy, which was a surprise to us all.
It
That
was.
Plessy, not only did he come on, but he was the first substitution after 63 minutes, and definitely had a positive impact. Uh, his tenacity, and resulting in the goal, and I'm getting the assist for that goal as well. Um, so that seems like an obvious change to me, for the next game, bringing Plessy in for Anthony, or at least, w- the manager needs to start, like, his first sign of the summer was Mason Mount. You can't keep bringing him into the team and leaving him out, bringing him in and leaving him out, and then when you do play him, he's played in about 3 different positions so far. He's never going to gain any form from that. Um, Now, I mentioned in previous podcasts how he had done well in the Palace game in the League Cup and the Galatasaray game in the Champions League. And yesterday, when he came on after 79 minutes, he seemed to have a positive impact. Um, I thought so anyway. Let me know your views in the comments. Um, I think he needs to be given an opportunity now and play him. Uh, Decide on a position that you're going to play him in, and then play him there about 5, 6 games in a row, and let's see what he can do. And I think that he should start in the Copenhagen game. Ericsson has seen a lot of football recently. Played 86 minutes against Manchester City. Yesterday, Christian Eriksen played 79 minutes, and we know that his energy is not what it was. So I want to see Mason Mount from the start on a consistent basis, and not see what he can do. He has to be given an opportunity. You can't spend 60 million on someone and then play him in several different positions, and then take him out of the team, and then just get rid of him. I want to see him get a proper chance. How do you feel about it, Nigel?
Yeah, well, Mason Mount's he's a quality player, and he's won a Premier League medal. The guy has got it, but he just doesn't seem to have settled here, and I don't know why he hasn't integrated properly. As you said, could be the coach's choice to move him about, not give him a definitive role. But as each game goes by, Kyle, the manager, I believe, is under more and more pressure, and he's desperate now. So whether he'll make many changes for the match in Copenhagen, who knows? But your point about Palestri is well made, because we were both surprised when he came on at all because he wasn't involved in the previous two games. He was left out of the squad completely, which I thought was harsh. When you consider, as you've already said, and I agree, how badly Anthony plays week in and week out. So going to Denmark on Wednesday, he should play Palestri from the start and try to get somebody down the right who'll cross the ball and get a bit of width. Uh, Mason Mount, really, I haven't seen enough of him in the team playing permanently, getting an opportunity to establish himself in a permanent role. So we all want to see that. But this manager is under so much pressure. You wouldn't know. I don't understand his team selections anymore, Kyle. I'm lost. Season and a half in, I don't know where he's going with it. And the results are proving that.
Yeah, they're getting more and more confusing. I mean, yesterday, Dallo at left back, given how bad Dallo was against Newcastle, substituted at half time, and then he starts in the next game in a position that is not suited to a right-footed player. So I just can't get my head around that. Um, Amrabat, yes, I understand taking out of the team. He's not playing well, but with Casemiro being injured, we're now McTominay playing at the base of the midfield again, which we know is not his strong point. Um, yeah, and Ericsson and McTominay playing in that midfield too. That was a big danger last season, especially away to Manchester City. They're just going to get there's no specialist holding midfielder in there, so they're just going to get totally overrun against better opposition. So not in favour of that at all. Bruno, I know he's getting a lot of praise from fans for the goal yesterday, but doesn't fool me. I mean, he was horrendous again yesterday. From he scored in 91st minute, but from minute 1 to minute 90, he was really, really poor. And it's difficult to talk about too many players that are actually in form at the minute. There's no one. Um, Now Wan-Bissaka has come back for the last game and a half, and it's just looked absolutely immense. You wouldn't know that he'd been out for several weeks. Um, he's the one kind of positive from yesterday, and he's just an absolute automatic selection now for every game. Not just because of how reliable he is as a defender, but how poor Diogo Dallo is. And I suppose one other slight positive is that the goalkeeper isn't making errors anymore. And I thought it all started with the Copenhagen performance. He made a brilliant save from open play, then saved the penalty. Was our only bright spark against Manchester City. And again, yesterday when he was called upon, he made the saves, albeit sometimes the saves are a bit unorthodox and don't fill you with confidence sometimes. But certainly there's
No.
been a marked improvement on what he's shown in the past.
Yeah, he hasn't put his head down since he had those bloopers, for want of a better word. But I'm impressed that he's got stuck in and is prepared to stay in the team and prove what his ability really is because he believes in himself. There's no doubt about it. He's a self-confident guy. But it couldn't be very good, helpful for him as a goalkeeper, a number one playing behind that back four that started yesterday is, in my opinion, one of the worst back fours out of the 20 teams in the Premier League. It is absolutely woeful. You saw one occasion where Dallo hit the ball off McGrath and it went for a corner, and no communication, no shouting from anybody. Just glad it was a corner. And then, of course, they clap each other on the back or on the hand if they think what they do is good defence. That's routine defensive football that any player playing at the back in the Premier League should be doing. There's no reason for all this gratification between the players, especially with the results we've had.
Yeah, the manager appears to have lost faith already in his brand new signings this summer. We've touched on Mason Mount not starting games. Regulon, I know he's an emergency signing, but he's the only left-footed left back that they have currently. He's not starting him. Um, Amrabat has obviously been left out now. Varane is our most accomplished defender. He's not being picked. He must be furious that Maguire and Evans are starting ahead of him. So you could probably note that as another player that the manager is not on good terms with. Um, yeah, so that's his first choice back four now. Wan-Bissaka, Maguire, Evans, and Dallo. Like he was so you can get away with that centre back pairing against Fulham, Brentford, Burnley, Sheffield United. But when he decided to play that against Manchester City for tactical reasons. Well, we all could have told them, journalists, fans, pundits, we all could have told them that they were going to be found out against Manchester City. Maguire and Evans, maybe they're good enough to play in games against teams in the bottom half of the Premier League.
Yeah.
You play them against top class opposition, they're going to be found out, aren't they?
No, without a doubt. And as is well stated in the media, this was Leicester's back to at the centre 5 years ago. Time moves on, the legs go, the pace, your reading of the game, all sorts of things. And those two guys are just not good enough. When, as you say, we play the top teams. We have two games this week which any Man United team should win, especially with Luton at home on Saturday. Then we have the break, Kyle, and there's some very tough away games coming up after that. And if we have that defensive pairing and Dallo at left back against those top teams, we will be taken apart. That's the way I see that.
Yeah, there is a possibility that after this international break, that Luke Shaw could come back into the team, although that'll be a slow process given he's been out for so long.
Mm.
That's Yes, he's not perfect, but he is a much better fullback than anything else we've got. If Shaw and Martinez were back in the team, that would be an enormous boost. Because yeah, because look who have been playing at left centre back and left back in recent times. You Johnny Evans, Diogo Dallo, Regulon, and Lindelof playing left back. It's been absolutely horrendous. Um, Lindelof. Now you've complained a lot about players missing games through illness. I'm not sure I believe that Varane was ill the other night against Newcastle, but anyway, Lindelof is someone who's ill quite a lot. So we'll have to take that one at face value. Is it is there many other teams that miss so many players through illness?
I don't know of any other team. It's just amazing. I mean, you and I talk about it quite a lot. It's just amazing how many times these players miss it due to illness. If you ask Roy Keane or the late great George Best about feeling slightly unwell and missing a game, it wouldn't happen, Kyle. They care too much, too passionate about the club. The shirt, once they put it on, they were there for 90, 100 minutes, whatever it was. These guys are wrapped up in cotton wool and mysterious injuries, and some of them very, very late. That even when they're warming up, like Martial can do a thigh in of a thigh strain and not start when you've already the team sheet out to the referee. That's how bad it is. It's becoming a laughing stock upon fans around the country, because they certainly said to me, "You've a few illnesses again." I see.
Yeah, it's highly unusual. It seems to be every game somebody's ill. Yeah, it's highly unusual. I've seen it happening once or twice at other clubs, but it doesn't seem to be a regular occurrence as far as I know, unless someone can correct me on that, who knows their own club better than I do. Um, yeah, it's absolutely there's just no joy in watching United at the moment. Um, Even getting that late winner yesterday and getting the late winner against Brentford, I wasn't celebrating the way I normally would, because I just don't think we're going anywhere. I just think the as soon as this team plays decent opposition again, they're going to lose, and I just think the manager sacking is now inevitable. Um, I just don't see him turning around at this point. I certainly don't see a scenario where Ten Hag becomes a Premier League winning Manchester United manager. I think that ship has sailed a long time ago. Do you agree with me?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I do agree with you totally, because you every United fan currently acknowledges the problems off the pitch, the ownership issue, and the Jadon Sancho issue, and that doesn't help the manager, who I thought was very fair last season with Sancho when he sent him to Holland and tried to help him through his personal problems, etc. But basically, the current coach, he's had a season and a half, is team selections are becoming more and more confusing. He just doesn't seem to know between a good footballer and a bad footballer. He's playing players out of position. He's playing players on the wing who don't deliver any service to anybody in the middle. So you have to address the problems. We're all seeing the problems. The fans that are currently going to the games are telling him when he's making substitutions, like taking the centre forward off, who's the only one in the front three that's trying. And I don't see the guy. I just think the job's too big for him, Kyle. He'll have to go. It's a question of when that'll happen.
Yeah, for me, it's a case of when rather than if when it comes to the manager. Um, yeah, as Bruce here says in the comments, Anthony was terrible again. What needs to happen for him to be dropped? I'll tell you what needs to happen for Anthony to be dropped. Ten Hag needs to be relieved of his duties. For Anthony to be dropped.
Good
It,
point, Bruce.
it's the only thing that's going to happen. Only way that's going to happen. Really, he's so loyal to probably him more than anyone else, and for obvious reasons. Because if Ten Hag can't make a success of his most expensive signing, then it probably points to him not being a success at Old Trafford himself. It would be damaging for Ten Hag's reputation for Anthony not to succeed as a United player, and I really don't think that is going to happen at this point. There was
But the other thing, Kyle, about Anthony is petulance. He could get a red card in any game. He's been fortunate so far, and I don't see the manager addressing that or talking to him. And he's going to leave his colleagues with 10 men for maybe 60 minutes in a vital game. And he's getting away with it, Kyle. And it wouldn't happen under Ferguson. It just wouldn't.
he's a loose cannon. I think it was against Brighton last season. He should have been sent off. Against Manchester City last week, he's very lucky not to get a red. If you remember, there was a game in the Europa League last season. It was against FC Sheriff, where he done a bit of showboating, that we kind of spin that he does, and the manager hooked him then at half time, and we didn't actually see him for a few weeks after that. But apart
That's
from
right.
that period, he's been playing consistently.
Yeah.
Um,
And what about the fact that he has 10 yellow cards and only 8 goals? Do you think that would be acceptable at Manchester City, Liverpool, or Arsenal? I don't think so somehow.
Yeah, more yellow cards and goals is just embarrassing. And he hasn't scored a Premier League goal for a year. He has no goals and no assists in this current season. He's not bringing absolutely nothing to the team, and needs dropped immediately. There's Palestri, he only played, what was it, 27 minutes yesterday, and he got an assist, and he deserved that assist because he put in a lot of hard work to put Fulham defenders under pressure
He
to make
did.
them mistake. Yeah, so that's an obvious change. I mean, if he's not prepared to start Palestri, I know Palestri started a few games in September and it didn't work out. Bayern Munich being an obvious one. Um, then you could play Mason Mount on the right hand side because he's not unaccustomed to playing that position. In fact, some Chelsea fans have said that that's where he played his best football, on the right hand side. So anything but Anthony really is what I'm trying to say.
And
It's
most
just
fans would agree with you. I don't know any fan in my circle of friends that would have Anthony in the team from this point for the rest of the season. That's how little he contributes to the team. He has no team involvement whatsoever.
yeah, he brings absolutely nothing to the table at the moment. Um, I don't know if you seen the other night there. Andy Cole was very critical of Anthony Martial. Um, he mentioned that he scored 89. He scored 89 goals in 9 games, and I think it's nowhere near good enough for United centre forward. I can't understand why he's still there. And in many ways, those two strikers are symbolic of the contrast between the past and present Manchester United, aren't they?
No, without a doubt, without a doubt. I mean, look at the front three as you've called it. Rashford's got one. And even yesterday, Bruno scored. So you've Casemiro with 4 and McTominay with 3 and Bruno with 3. We just can't get the goals coming from the front three. But as I've said earlier, in fairness to that young fella who's been thrown in at the deep end, what is he expected to do? He never gets any headers. He never gets any chances not by somebody shooting at the keeper, ball coming back to him. Nothing happens around him. So he's just running, trying to make himself available. Nobody sees him. He must be the most frustrated guy in the world up there.
Yeah, and his face looked that way when he was substituted for Martial after 79 minutes. Once again, not being allowed to complete the game. I'm sure he's desperate for a goal, and we're desperate to see him get one to get his confidence up. Only scored in the Champions League so far, but um, he's just not really given a chance. There's just very little service at all. Um, so I'm going to take a rundown of player ratings. I'd say 9 of these are not going to be good. 8 or 9 anyway. Um, so Onana, I'm going to say 7. Wan-Bissaka 7.5. Maguire and Evans, because we kept a clean sheet, I'll give them 6s. Diogo Dallo, very very poor performance again, very shaky, unreliable defender. I think he's woefully out of form. I think and inexplicable that he got a 5-year contract. I mean, if any fullback should get a 5-year contract, it's Aaron Wan-Bissaka, and not Diogo Dallo, and that decision is still mind-boggling. I'd love to know, was it Ten Hag's decision or did somebody else make that choice? But yeah, he's been, apart from the beginning of last season, between the start of the season and the World Cup, where he had a decent run of it. Apart from that, he's been really poor at Old Trafford. So a 3 for Dallo. McTominay unlucky not to get a goal. Still don't know why it was disallowed. Maguire was judged to have been offside, but Maguire didn't touch the ball. So I don't know why that was, and he wasn't impeding the goalkeeper's view. So I mean, the officials called it a subjective offside call. Never heard the like of that in my life. They're making up new rules now to disallow goals. McTominay, I give him a 5. Ericsson a 5. Um, Bruno, I give him a 6 for scoring the goal, but really poor performance. Anthony, a 2. Um, Garnacho, not his best day. But yeah, he did try. He was one who would have got an assist had McTominay's goal counted. I don't think he was. I think he was horrendous, but he wasn't great either. So probably a 5 for Garnacho, and Hoyland always gets at least a 6 for his effort. I feel, and I feel really sorry for him, like you say. In terms of substitutes, Palestri was the first substitute to come on and had a real positive impact. He would get a 7 for his impact from the bench. And all the rest of the substitutes come on very late on, so I tried to give them a rating. And Aaron Ten Hag got out of jail again with that late winner, so it would probably be 4 out of 10 for Eric Ten Hag. Um, Someone I want to see start games now for United, with Casemiro being out for a while, could be even longer than we're being told. When I hear several weeks, I'm thinking that could end up being a couple of months. Amrabat is not started off well at all at United, and that's quite interesting because Ten Hag apparently insisted on signing this player, but some of the recruitment team um, were not convinced about Amrabat, and at the moment, you got to say they looked as if they knew what they were talking about. Um, so I want to see Kobe Manu come into the starting 11 in the next few games. Would you agree with that, Nigel?
Oh, I would have him starting on Wednesday night, even though it's away from home. I think he's done enough. He's been training. He's back there, what, 5, 6 weeks now. He played very well for the under 21s last weekend. And I was hoping he would have been involved yesterday, but it's so weak and there's no vision, no creativity there. Ericsson, as you say, you can get 45 good minutes out of him, but that's all currently. I don't think he's been same player since the injury incurred by Andy Carroll way back in January. He was flying up to that point, and it's been very difficult, and it is difficult when you get into your early 30s to maintain a certain standard if you had a niggly injury and annoying you. But yeah, Manu he's got great promise, and let's have a look at him. But Kyle, will the manager be brave enough to do it? I don't think so.
Yeah, I can't predict this manager at all. I suppose when you're under so much pressure, your job's on the line. Probably the last thing that a manager is going to do is play an inexperienced young player, even though we would say, well, you've nothing to lose now at this point. The managers in this situation always kind of play it safe and play the players they think they trust the most. Um, Kobe Manu hadn't. I don't. He's only started a couple of League Cup games last season, something like that. He hasn't started a Premier League game anyway. I don't think. So I'd be amazed if the manager started him in an away Champions League game in Copenhagen, even though I'd love to see that. Um, uh, and I don't want to put him under too much pressure, but he he's got so much ability, um, and I want to see him in the team right now. I think that if he had not got injured in pre-season, he had started off so well in pre-season. If he had not got injured in that Real Madrid game, he might have been in the starting 11 at the beginning of the season, or at least you know coming off the bench regularly. So, with the manager under pressure at the moment, I don't know whether or not he would put Manu in at the start. But I certainly would. If I was a manager and the players are letting me down on a regular basis, I would start to look to someone like Manu. But I've seen it so many times with these managers. Know when they're getting close to the sack, and they tend to stick with the players that they trust the most. So I'm not convinced that it's going to happen, but we can only hope, because I certainly don't think McTominay is an option at number 6. If you
No,
have to start
yeah,
him, it has
yeah,
to be further up the pitch,
yeah. Well, here,
because
Kyle, here's the point. You're talking earlier about Casemiro. We have one international break this month, isn't that right? Do Brazil play during that period? I'll be watching carefully to see if Casemiro makes a miraculous recovery and has any involvement if Brazil have a competitive game, because some people are beginning to doubt when people are substituted at halftime when they say, oh, they're injured and one thing. I didn't see the injury at all. The guy was playing that badly. And it's happened with other players that have been hooked at halftime. You get strange justification for the withdrawal. And let's watch that one carefully. What happens if he's selected in the Brazil squad to play a match between now and the end of this month?
yeah, there's an international break after the Luton game, so we won't have long to find out. Yeah, and Rashford, the manager criticised him in his press conference. Uh, he was asked about Rashford going to a party the night of the Manchester City game, and the manager called it unacceptable. While Rashford didn't break any rules, it's not a good look to be going to a party in town just after you've been humiliated at home to your nearest rivals. Um, but Rashford might have taken exception to that. His behaviour being called unacceptable when he didn't break any rules. So very convenient that in the next Premier League game, well, he didn't start in the League Cup game, and in the next Premier League game he has this mysterious injury now. I'm not convinced about that one either, to be honest with you. Just of all the players to be injured against Fulham, is the player that the manager criticised on the Friday in the press conference. I just don't know what to believe anymore, to be honest with you, Nigel.
No, neither do I. Was he injured or was he ill?
Apparently he's injured.
What do you believe?
Yeah,
It's
it's
a
an
sad
absolute mess.
indictment of where we're at, isn't it? It really is. It's no wonder the fan bases are putting signs up behind the goals. They'll be they'll be putting one up at Old Trafford. Do you want to play for this club? You know.
Yeah, but they don't care. Like we've mentioned many times, they're sitting on like 5-year contracts on 350 grand a week, and they just don't seem to have the motivation. Then once this only seems to happen at United, it doesn't happen at City, Liverpool, or Arsenal.
Mm,
Whenever we give someone a new contract, then their performances drop off. It doesn't
yeah.
happen in the other big teams. They actually continue to play uh, with the same hunger and desire as they did before. Why do we have that cultural problem at United where players kind of slack off once they get a new contract?
Yeah, I think it's a lot to do with people above who aren't football people, as you have often said. They're accountants or financiers or whatever they are. They certainly don't have any idea about presenting proper contracts or signing proper players or giving approval. They can't get a decent price for a decent player. They have to go over the top, as people refer to the United tax. It just becomes laughable the amount. Look at this current manager has spent over £400 million, and where's the quality there, Kyle? It's absolutely disgraceful. The rest of the Premier League are laughing at our club. Some of the signings we're making.
Yeah. Um, yeah, we just get taken to the cleaners in every summer transfer window. There's no smart business being done at all. No matter how many new negotiators they bring in, they're not able to improve, wasting money. They brought in some guy um, to work alongside John Murta called Andy O'Boyle. Um, he's meant to be he was the deputy football director, and he's meant to be the chief negotiator or something. And yet it hasn't improved. I mean, if you're getting charged 72 million for a player who scored 9 league goals and there's only 20, then nothing's changed. They were paid 60 million for Mount, who had 1 year left on his contract, and paid 43 million for a goalkeeper. That's not particularly smart business. I mean, other teams could have signed 5 or 6 players with that money, and 5 or 6 quality players as well. Um, Now our only hope is that now we've all heard the news that a new shareholder is on the horizon, and this shareholder is going to have control of football operations, and he's going to do a clean sweep of the whole football side of the club. Um, Richard Arnold will go, so will John Murta, and you would think that the manager will go as well, because when new people take over a football club, they usually bring in their own man. Um, and Ten Hag is not performing well at the moment, so it seems inevitable to me. And that's important, because I don't see the point in bringing in a new coach and I'm working under the same structure, because he's gonna fail as well. We're going to be back to the same situation in 18 months' time. It's important that when the new manager comes in, that he's given a competent director of football to work alongside. We're led to believe that's going to be Paul Mitchell. He's very experienced, and the new CEO is going to be Jean Claude Blanc, who used to work as CEO for Juventus. Um, so it does sound positive, and I hope it works, because Ineos, the, they've a lot of sporting projects, including Mercedes Formula One, British cycling, and the football team in Nice, and it's taken a while for them to be successful there. But this season, it seems to be working for them, because they've overhauled their sporting department, and they brought in a new director of football, a new coach, and they're signing young players rather than names, like Balotelli, Ramsey, and Schmeichel. They've decided to bring in all these unknown young players from around the world, and it's jailed into a better team. And they're second in the league behind PSG. Um, and Radcliffe had admitted in an interview that he had made mistakes at Nice, and they hope to learn from that, and hopefully they can bring that to Old Trafford. Realize what they've done right and what they've done wrong, and we can only hope that he gets his appointments right at United, and we can be successful again sooner rather than later, because we desperately need changes in all departments.
Yeah, I agree. But the one question to ask your viewers and listeners, I would put out to them that if and things are happening slowly, the whole process of the Glazers, etc., selling the club has been so slow and so frustrating. If it doesn't happen to say the 1st of February, for sake of argument, would anybody in the fan base be prepared to allocate any funds, though there won't be many signings in January? But if this particular manager, Ten Hag, asks for more money to buy on loan players from January to June of 2024, it should be stopped, Kylie. He cannot make a decent signing. He's been allocated very generously 400 million plus. And I would ask the question, should he be allowed to get any more money to buy any future players?
No, I don't think they will be allocated any more money unless he wins 10 games in a row between now and January. I just don't see it happening. Um, and I don't think he'll be removed until that. Ineos 25% stake is formalized, because the Glazers notoriously don't want to make decisions anyway. They always delay them, and they won't want to make a change of manager that Ineos have not improved, or Radcliffe is not approved of. Sorry. Um, when you're just about to, you know, sell a stake to another party, and you're giving that party control of the football operations, you're not then just going to make a decision on a new manager just before that happens.
Yeah.
So I don't see a change happening in the dugout until Jim Radcliffe actually gets his feet under the table. Now that could be 2 weeks away, could be more than that, but yeah, I don't see. To answer your question, I don't see Ten Hag getting any money to spend in January. And the way things are going, I would expect a new coach to be in place in January, unless something miraculous happens. Now it's we still have several areas of the team that we need to sort out between now and next summer. It's obvious that we need to strengthen at centre back. We need to strengthen in midfield, because Casemiro and Varane are done, and they'll probably go to the Saudi Pro League. Um, Donny Evans won't be here any longer. And obviously we need a striker. We can't have another season with Hoyland and Martial. I expect Martial to be released at the end of the season as his
I
contract's
hope
up.
so. I hope so.
But what I would do in if we can only make one signing in January, what I would do, it would be Ivan Tony. And I know it's going to be very competitive. Probably a lot of the big teams in the Premier League will want him, and it seems as if Brentford will be prepared to sell him. I seen Thomas Frank's appearance on Monday Night Football a few weeks back, and they'll definitely sell him for the right price. So if we could make one sign in January, it would be Ivan Tony. How would you feel about that, Nigel?
Well, if they would take Donny van de Beek and Martial in exchange plus cash, that would suit me. That would suit me. Yeah, I think Tony's he's a goal scorer. He did well in the championship for years. He stepped up and he has improved. I think it was 9 and then 20 he got the following season. So he's got the promise to score at the top level. We don't have to wait the way we have to wait with Hoyland. We need a goal scorer yesterday, and he would be one I would like to see. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I was noticing that the striker Martinez, he plays for Argentina, Inter Milan. Absolutely, he scored 28 goals last season, and this season he has 13 goals in 14 matches. I think he's 12 goals in 11 matches in Serie A, and goal he scored yesterday was a thing of beauty. So I don't think you could get him out of Inter Milan in January. But if we haven't signed Ivan Tony in January, or somebody else of that quality, then I would definitely consider signing Martinez in the summer, because yeah, I know it would cost a lot of money. But yeah, not that I obviously want Hoyland to stay there, but we need a more experienced striker to alongside him. And any club needs several strikers. You just can't be relying on one player to get you goals, especially when he's so inexperienced. So yeah, I think we need to spend money on a striker who's going to guarantee us goals. Um, and yeah, we need it. We need a whole new spine. I think in the next 9 months or so, between January and the summer, we need to.
Oh, yeah, I agree. But one thing you and I have discussed previously is temperament and research. We need someone from next year onwards who's involved in heavy negotiation to do a bit of research about the temperament of some of these players. I mean, you've mentioned Argentinian to me, who I'm not familiar with, but somebody needs to find out, has he a history on and off the pitch. We want professional players who are going to do the business for MUFC. Some of these signings for these dubious backgrounds, as you quite often say, their search hasn't been done, and it needs to be done, Kyle, because the fans are losing out.
Yeah, certainly due diligence has to be done on a player's character before he's signed. I would have thought that would have been obvious in this day and age, but they continue to make those mistakes. Um, and it's obvious to me that the recruitment can't be just handed over to the manager. Somebody needs to be there to tell him that no, this player is not good enough. I can get you a better player. And apparently, it's written into Ten Hag's contract that uh, he has a majority control over signings. I don't think that's a good idea at all, because uh, the majority of his signings have failed. United so far, 400 million, like you say, being spent, and not much to show for it. You should have a competent director of football in there who's going to be in charge of not recruiting players, but also getting rid of players and recruiting managers.
Yeah,
And I think that's what the plan is with the new shareholder coming in. Um, Paul Mitchell is very experienced. Not he was at Southampton on Tottenham with Pochettino. He was at Red Bull Leipzig, and he's now at Monaco. Um, s- and he has a real knack of bringing in, rough diamonds, players we haven't heard of who turn out to be good. Monaco doing really well in the French league at the moment, but yeah, and he's from Manchester. I think he's a United fan, so I think he would absolutely love the job, love to be the guy that turns it around. So
yeah,
I think, from what I've heard, the new structure is going to be essentially Mitchell will be a general manager, and then we'll just have a head coach rather than a manager, if you know what I mean. So his job will be to search for a new head coach, and hopefully he gets that. And that's what should be happening. And director of football should be appointing a head coach. It shouldn't be an accountant or some guy, some scout that they've appointed from within. John Murta just does not have the qualifications to be working. Like, he's he, he's Manchester United's director of football. That is the first time that he's ever been a director of football. There's no way that Manchester United should be employing a guy who's never done that role before. But that's the pattern under the Glazers. It's always promotion from within, giving jobs to people that they trust, not the best people for the jobs. They don't do that in the commercial side of the business. They bring in the best possible employees in the world to do that job. But anyone will do when it comes to the football department, and that is why we're in the situation we are 10 years on from Ferguson's retirement. How many trophies do we have to show for the last 10 years? It's just um, two League Cups, an FA Cup, and an Europa League in 10 years. Absolutely disgraceful.
it is. But Kyle, one thing that strikes me is the new structure, as you call it. They have a major decision to make in January with the Jadon Sancho thing. Are they
Hmm.
going to come in? Now, remember that he's on the books, getting paid huge salary, and he's a valuable asset in terms of the 73 million that we paid for him. Will the new structure, somebody at the top level, take a look from both sides of the story and talk to Sancho's people and talk to Ten Hag and then make a decision because it's a valuable asset? If he was a player that wasn't worth anything, it would be dealt with in a normal way. But that's a big issue, and I'll be watching that carefully to see what happens because it has to be sorted out. It's affecting the team, it's affecting training, the squad, all sorts of issues, and it can't be ignored.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens whether if a new coach comes in between now and January. Does he is it a clean slate for Jadon Sancho? I personally have said this already that I wouldn't trust him now if I was a new coach, because um he has form for falling out with managers, accusing clubs of making him a scapegoat, being late to training, slacking off in training. So if United had looked at his history, then they shouldn't have signed him. This is exactly what we're talking about. The
Yeah,
homework was not done on that player, and
yeah.
now they've got into another mess. Um, so yeah, if I was the new coach, I would just let him move on. To be honest with you, I suppose that it will also come down to whether he fits into the new coach's style of play. What does he want from a forward player? Now most coaches these days like players who are quick and can press and have lots of energy. Sancho doesn't really bring that, so it would have to be a particular style of coach to for Sancho to actually fit into the team. So yeah, I would. If Ten Hag's still here in January, definitely Sancho is going to be moved on, whether it be a loan or a permanent move. So yeah, it is another issue with the new people will have to sort out. Um, yeah, they got their work cut out. I mean, Jim Radcliffe himself has been on record saying about how much money Manchester United wasted on players, and he singled out Fred. He said, "How could they spend 52 million on Fred? It's absolutely
Yeah.
ridiculous."
Yeah, it certainly is. My goodness, what a waste of money.
So yeah, he thinks that United can make better use of the revenue that they make. So yeah, that's very interesting. He certainly has his head screwed on there by the sounds of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just Jim Radcliffe recruitment policy of just squandering money on poor players. So that does sound positive, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It does. But watch this space. You don't know what will happen there.
Yeah, I suppose we've said many times if the Glazers are moved on, it couldn't possibly get any worse. Could it? Surely anything is better than a Glazer regime. Um, the only problem is, even with that change, they're still going to be in charge of the commercial department, and the debt will linger. But hopefully, I can't see Radcliffe just being happy with 25%. He's used to being in control, and you think there'd be a pathway to him becoming a majority owner. I think is I mentioned to you there, Lewis Hamilton, the Formula One multiple world champion. I think
Yeah.
he owns the joint record now. On the back of his car, you would see the Ineos logo, Jim Radcliffe's petrochemical company, and
Okay.
he has a friendship with the Mercedes team principal Toto Wolff, I think he's German or Austrian. Toto Wolff has also said in an interview recently that he'd be interested in buying shares in Manchester United as well, along with Radcliffe. But he says he doesn't think that's going to happen immediately. He's worth 1.6 billion himself. Um, so yeah, there's definitely looks as if the Glazer regime is going to slowly come to an end. And thankfully, they will not be making football decisions anymore. Now there's still fans who doubt that. They find it hard to believe that the Glazers won't be involved in football decisions. But if Fabrizio Romano says it, then it must be true.
Well,
So
remember, Kyle, that the Joel Glazer blocked the sale of Martial. That was a what a terrible decision that was. That's the sort of decisions they shouldn't be allowed to be anywhere near.
yeah, what we're being told is that there's going to be a football committee almost making the decisions at the club at the very above the director of football. You're going to have Radcliffe, Dave Brailsford, who works closely with Radcliffe, and Joe Glazer still. And apparently, that's a legal requirement that Joe Glazer still has to be part of the decision making process. But it's very clever on NES's part because they would outvote him 2-1 on
True.
any big decisions. So
Yeah.
that is something. It just shows you how little Glazers care about football, that they were willing to sign over the football department and still keep control of the commercial department. It shows you what really matters to them. Not that
Yeah.
we needed any reminder of that.
No.
But so Copenhagen on Wednesday, absolute must-win game to stay in the Champions League, as all of the Champions League group games are now because we lost the first two. Now for me, it's obvious Anthony needs to be dropped. And yeah, so what I would do, I don't expect the manager to make too many changes, like you say, but if he is going to make one or two, what I would do, well, first of all, I bring back Varane. That should be obvious, but who knows what's going on between the manager and Varane at the moment, but that we're not privy to. It seems very bizarre to me. But Palessi for Anthony would be another obvious one, and I would bring in Mason Mount for Christian Eriksen. I'm Menu maybe to come in for McTominay. So I'm
Yeah.
actually just while
Yeah.
I'm talking, I would probably make four changes. Would you go along with that?
Yes. 100%. Yeah. Nothing to lose. Game will have to win. Let's put a team on the pitch that's going to start from minute one and win the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Even a draw wouldn't be good enough here.
No.
And Ten Hag this is important to his job as well. To be knocked out of the Champions League group stages, absolutely not good enough. At all. We're so sick and tired of Thursday night football in the Europa League and hearing the Europa League anthem and playing teams that we'd never heard of. We've had enough of that in recent seasons, and it's just the same. Like we've been knocked out of the Champions League group stages under Ollie and Van Gaal previously. Like Mourinho got to the last 16, and it's just we just we're we're knocked out of this tournament as soon as we get into it, and it's the same pattern. We go from Champions League season to Europa League season, Champions League season, and back to Europa League season. It's just in and out and in and out. It's just we're just a laughing stock now. And we used to be a feared team in Europe alongside Real Madrid and Bayern Munich, and now we're just a laughing stock, aren't we?
Yeah, it's sad. The record post Ferguson is just ridiculous, and it has to be improved on. The money, people are always concerned about the money in the Champions League. We as fans are more concerned about the quality of football, what we sign and what we do on the pitch, and try to play the United way and entertain. It's just not good enough at the moment. Has to get better, guy.
Yeah, I think we've played in a Champions League quarter final twice since 2011 when we lost Barcelona in the final. So that's twice in 12 years that we've made the quarterfinals of the Champions League. It's
It's
absolutely
ridiculous.
ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what is your prediction then for Wednesday night?
Well, as we can't score any goals, I'd take a 1-0 win away from home right now. Bank the 3 points.
Yeah, I think one or two things going to happen here. I think they'll score a couple of goals early and we'll capitulate and lose the game, or we'll scrape a 1-0 win and keep our Champions League hopes alive. So I think it'll be one of the two. We have to score first. If we concede early, then I think we'll be in trouble because I don't see us scoring two goals. Like you've alluded to, yeah. So, yeah, it's important that we score first and keep a clean sheet. I feel, and give ourselves the best possible chance of winning the game. But it's going to be a raucous atmosphere, and we know this team struggles in those type of away atmospheres. And if they get on top of us early on, we could crumble. Because there is real mentality issue in this in amongst the squad. They just not only we've touched on their lack of desire, but there's also a real lack of self belief as well in the squad. Their confidence is shot to pieces. So if we were 1 or 2 nil down early on, there's no chance it will come back. I don't think. I think it'd probably get worse, to be honest. So yeah, it's important we keep a clean sheet and get that goal by hook or by crook. It'll be from Maguire from a set piece, maybe. Maguire, of course, scored in the reverse fixture, so maybe be able to do it again.
Mhm.
But as always, it's been a pleasure to have you on, Nigel, despite the form of United at the moment.
No, thanks for asking me. Appreciate
If
it.
everyone can please like the video on YouTube and subscribe to the podcast and get more of your comments in, and I shall see everyone again next weekend.